All right, here's your next lesson, which is multiplying and dividing rational numbers. Let's go ahead up to your table of contents. We're still working with the same learning goals as before, because now we're dealing with the multiplying and dividing part of these, okay, and still evaluating expressions. So 13, 14, and 15 are the learning goals for this. Go ahead and put your page or your date in there as well. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down to this lesson today. I'll get rid of the page sorter, and here we go. Now, as we're multiplying and dividing rational numbers, you're still going to be thinking about your integer rules, okay? So when multiplying and dividing fractions or decimals, we're still thinking about our sleepy face, okay, if you prefer to do that, or just that love-hate relationship, okay? All right, so with multiplying decimals, we have a couple rules to follow. So zoom in, let's get these written, okay? Number one is completely forget about the decimals. And just multiply. So you completely get rid of them. And we only focus on the decimals at the end. So step 2 is to count the decimals, or the decimal places, in the original problem. And that will equal the decimal places in the answer. Okay? All right. And then with dividing decimals, you're going to move the decimal in the divisor to the right, and the dividend decimal the same amount. AMT is an abbreviation for amount. Okay. After you do that, divide as normal. Move the decimal straight up into the quotient, okay? If you don't remember divisor and dividend, sometimes I draw a little like hat, like a baseball hat, okay? This part is the visor of the hat, is the front. So you have your dividend is in the like back end of the hat, your divisor, and then your quotient is at the top. Just to remember that vocabulary. All right, and then we'll talk about fractions in a little bit. Let's go ahead and take care of the decimal work first. Okay, so evaluate each expression. I see that I'm multiplying, so I want to be right away noticing my love-hate situation. So I hate to love, okay? If I hate loving, then I know that my answer needs to be negative. So I'm going to make a note on these. Again, our goal is to do little tricks so that we don't make mistakes. All right, now my rules for multiplying decimals were forget about the decimal completely. And so we just write 123 times 5, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and solve that. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6. And then I go to the original problem and I count over 1, 2 for this one, 1, 2 for this one. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So I'm going to start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is my new number, okay, 0.0615. Okay, you can always pull up that calculator and check and make sure you're good. So I have 1.23 negative times 0.05 equals, and there we go, 0.0615. Okay, and so we're good, and let's go ahead and move on. All right, we know that this means multiplication, invisible math there. So I'm going to look at my love-hate. So I hate to hate. If I hate to hate, that means I actually love. So I'm going to mark that my answer needs to be positive. Ooh, did I adjust that over here? Geez. Answer needs to be negative. See? Look how simple it is to mess that up. You got to be really careful. Okay, even after I checked. All right. So over here, answer needs to be positive on this one. Okay, so even if that means like put it down there so you don't forget, make sure you do that. All right, so here we go. I'm multiplying, and so we just ignore the numbers. I'm going to put the bigger amount of digits on top. Okay, and multiply. 7 times 5 is 35. 7, 8, 9, 10, and there we go with 105. I'm going to count my decimals, so 1, 2 for this one, 1, 2, 3 over for this one, so 5 over total. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My decimals here, and I have 2 zeros that go there. I'm going to check my work real quick. So 0.007 times, and that was negative, times 0.15 negative equals, there we go. It lost track of the negative if you look up there, 0.00105, okay? Because for some reason, it didn't put in the negative up in there. It's making it negative, but I know it's actually positive because I have my note down here. So this is my final answer, and there we go. All right, next one. We know that this just means division, okay? And so we have a new division problem of decimals. So right away, let's think about our love-hate. So I hate to love, okay? And if I hate loving, that means that in my answer, I'm actually hating, which is going to be a negative, okay? So pay attention to that. Let's set up our division. So we have our 5.37, this is negative, if I just want to note it, divided by 0.3. My steps for division says move the decimal and divisor to the right, okay? And so this is going to go to here, making us have just a whole number of 3. I need to move this one the same amount, okay? And right away I can move it up, okay? All right. Now what we're doing is going to solve our division as we normally would. We can ignore the negative symbol because we know at the end our answer is going to be negative. Okay, so if you want to sort of think through it that way, that's something you can do is just put it up there right away. All right, so 3 times what gets me close to 5? I know that's a 1. Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. Do my subtraction, and I have 2 left over. Bring down the 3. Okay, 3 times what gets me close to 23? I know 3 times 7 is 21. Subtract and bring down the 7. 3 times what gets me close to 27? I know that's 3 times 9 is exactly 27. And that will finish this up with no remainder. And so we have the answer of negative, okay, double checking my answer, negative 17.9. I'm going to check my work real quick. So I have 5.37 negative divided by 0.3, and there we go, negative 17.9, so we're good. Okay, all right, next one, we have another division problem. I hate to hate, which means my answer is actually going to be love or positive. Let's go ahead and set up our problem. So we have 4.37 divided by 0.19. Because my answer is positive, I'll just leave nothing there. I don't need to write a positive up there. And our first step is move the decimal over. So we have 19 now. I moved it over twice, so I'm going to do the same thing in the dividend as well. Right away, bring it up. That way it's already there and ready to go. All right, so now we have a 19 times what gets me close to 4? Nothing. 19 times what gets me close to 43? So 19 is sort of like 20. So 2, 4. So probably 2 works. Double 19 is going to be 38. So that works. And then if we subtract, we have a difference of 5. We're going to bring down the 7. I like boxing it just to make it stand out there. 19 times what gets me close to 57? I know 19 times 2 is 38, so let's see if I add another 19. 38, 48, yeah, so that should work if I do times 3 this time. Okay, so if I do 19 times 3, that gets me 38 plus 19, 48, 58, so 56. Just want to double check that. 19 times 3, 57. See, good thing I checked. So it gets us a perfect 57. You obviously could also have done 19 times 3 on the side and should have just knew that that was 27. Sometimes when I'm recording, I'm not thinking as well. And then we subtract and we have nothing left over. So we actually have 23 as our answer. Okay, and our answer is positive. So let's double check our work here. So we have a 4.37 negative, and that's divided by a 0.19 negative, which automatically makes it, there we go, 23 positive. All right, now we're on to fractions. So let's go ahead up to our key concepts here. So when we're multiplying or dividing, well, when we're multiplying fractions, your first thing that you can do, you don't have to because you'll get the correct answer. It just makes it a little nicer. The first step is to see if you can cross simplify. And we're going to put if possible, just because you can't always do it. Okay, you don't have to do that. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with. You end up with smaller numbers. And then remember, with multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across. Okay. When we're dividing fractions, we'll go through a set of things. Similar to subtracting integers, we just don't do it. With dividing fractions, we just don't do it. All you do instead is multiply by the reciprocal. And reciprocal, I believe it's up here in the vocab. Yeah. So the reciprocal is two numbers whose product is 1. Okay. So basically it means flipping the numerator and denominator. But you'll see when we get there. So multiply by the reciprocal. It's flipping your numerator and denominator. So for example, if you have 1/4 divided by 2/5, okay, instead we would multiply by the reciprocal, which is just taking the numerator and denominator and flipping them, okay? And so that's what you'll do for that, and then you just follow your multiplication rules, okay? So it makes it nice and easy. So let's go ahead and do these last 4 problems like that. I already see that this one's multiplying, so I'm going to be following those steps. The other thing that you're going to want to do is always change the fraction, the mixed number to an improper fraction. So for this one, I have 9 times 1 plus 8. So we actually end up with a 3/7 times 15 ninths, and that is negative, okay? Except that that should be 17. All right. Wow. And I'm writing negative 117. All right, so here we go. So we have 3/7 times a negative 17 ninths. Sorry, like I said, when I'm recording, sometimes I'm thinking of other things, and my kids are in the other room playing. So here we go. Now that we have this, we think about your cross simplifying. Like I said, you don't have to do that, but it does make it a little bit easier. So what we're looking at here is I can see that these two numbers, that I can divide a common factor from them to make those numbers smaller. So if I divide by 3 here and divide by 3 here, I end up with a new simpler fraction of 1/7 times negative 17 thirds. Okay, it's just going to make it a lot easier for us to work with. We multiply straight across now, so I have a negative 17 over 21. Okay, and that is it. Highlight my answer, and we're done. Okay, all right, let's go ahead over to number 6. Okay, number 6, I'm going to look and see if I want to turn 9/10 into a decimal. So I could do that, or I could turn the 2/10 into a fraction. Okay, either way, both are fine. I'm going to go ahead and just turn the 2/10 into a fraction because I actually like multiplying fractions better than setting up all the decimal stuff and moving decimals and things like that. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. I have negative 9/10. I'm going to rewrite it with the negative up in the numerator, times, and that just says negative 2/10. You can see this is super nice to work with, and I can just go ahead and multiply straight across. So 2 times 9 is 18. Because I hate to hate, I end up loving, and we end up with 10 times 10 is 100. Now I can simplify this, and so because I see that they're both even, so I'm going to divide by 2 over 2, okay, that whole number, and I end up with 9 for the numerator, and we end up with 50 for the denominator. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight, and I'm done already. Okay. All right, down here, I see that I have division now. And if you remember, we are never going to do division. You're always going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay. So some people in the past have used like a keep, change, flip, that kind of language, but we really want to be using the language multiply by the reciprocal instead. And so one of the things that you have to know is that when you have a number like negative 3.25, or let's just talk about if you have a negative 3, you have to understand that and remind yourself that that's actually negative 3 over 1. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these. I see that I have a fraction and a decimal. So I need to change something. This 2/3, let me see if we can change that to a decimal. It's one that you will have memorized, but maybe you don't yet. Okay, and you'll see it's a repeating. And we can never change a fraction to a decimal that's repeating because we're not going to be accurate, because you're automatically going to be cutting it off and terminating it when it shouldn't be. Okay, so which is why it's also not okay to just type negative 2 divided by 3 and then divided by the negative 3.25. It just won't be accurate because it's rounding it off at the end. Okay, so we have to change the decimal into a fraction to do this work. I know that this is negative 3, and 0.25 is a pretty common decimal. So most people know because of quarters that it is 1/4. If you didn't know that, you could write it as 25 hundredths. And then I could simplify by 25 over 25 and end up with 1/4 anyway. Okay, so that's another option if you just didn't know that. But you can see why it's good to know some of those things. All right, so we have a negative 2/3 divided by negative 3 1/4. Right away, let's go ahead and turn this into an improper fraction. And so I have negative 2/3 divided by 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And so we have a negative 13 over 4, okay, or negative 13/4. So now I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal. And so I have negative 2/3 multiply by the reciprocal. Normally I would just keep my negative at the top, but because some of you might accidentally just do this, I'll go ahead and do it this way and show you that it's still the same. If it was on the top, it would be doing negative 2 times a negative 4. Hate to hate, it would end up turning positive anyway, but we'll see how it plays out. Okay, I'm going to check and see if I can cross simplify, and I can't. So we'll go ahead and multiply straight across. We have negative 2 times 4 is 8, and I hate to love, so I hate. 3 times 13, you can do a little side problem if you don't know that. So 3 times 3 is 9, and then 3, so we have 39. That's also negative. And then you can see a negative divided by a negative was going to be a positive anyway, so those cancel each other out. And you end up with 8 over 39, or 8/39 as your final answer. Okay, and there you go. All right, last problem here. We have 3/5 divided by negative 7. I know, again, that negative 7 is actually negative 7 over 1. Okay, and so I can go ahead and work this out. So we're going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and we have times 1 over negative 7. Now, I guess I could turn 3/5 into a decimal. Let's see what that would be. 3 divided by 5. So it does equal 0.6 or 6/10. So I could go through and do that division of decimals. It's just a lot of work to do all that long division. So I'd rather just do this and be done with it. I can't do any cross simplifying, so I'm just going to multiply straight across. And I get 5/35. 5 times the negative 7, though, loving to hate, is negative. I'm not going to put it on the bottom like that. It's very uncommon. I would just put it right on the top. Okay, and there's your final answer. Okay, all right, so that is multiplying and dividing decimals.